these restrictions should have went down, a while back so that we can, bend the curve.
Tonight, Alberta announces new tough restrictions to try to curb COVID-19. But some people say that move should have been done sooner.
This has just given me incredible exposure and training on how to do those kind of things. It's been great.
And we take a look at a new program that has gone online to help Indigenous entrepreneurs achieve their business dreams. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. This week, the Alberta government introduced new province-wide COVID-19 restrictions in an effort to try to curb the rising number of cases. And some Indigenous leaders are saying the restrictions should have been implemented long ago. APTN's Chris Stewart has the story.
On Tuesday, December 8th, Premier Jason Kenney announced strong new measures across the province. Alberta now has over 20,000 active cases, the most of any province.
The virus is spreading at an alarming rate in every region of the province, and many of those who fall ill in rural areas do end up being cared for in the increasingly hard-pressed large urban hospitals. So the bottom line is that we must have a coordinated province-wide approach now.
As of Saturday, December 12th, the following restrictions will be in place province-wide. Retail stores and shopping malls will have a 15% capacity limit. Bars and pubs will only be allowed to serve takeout and curbside delivery. All entertainment businesses must close, including casinos, art galleries, museums, nightclubs, theaters. Churches are limited to 15% of fire code capacity. Employees are mandated to work from home unless it is impossible to do so. Mandatory masks must be worn in all working indoor places and places of worship. All indoor and outdoor social gatherings are prohibited with a potential $1,000 fine, and close contacts are limited to household members only. Herb Blair is the president of the Métis Settlements General Council. He says he approves the new measures.
I think it's something that is good. I think that above all else, health and life comes first, and we need to do everything within our power to protect that.
Marlene Poitras is the Alberta AFN Regional Chief. She told APTN that these tougher restrictions have come too late and could cause suffering.
Personally, I thought that these restrictions should have went down, a while back so that we can bend the curve so people can spend Christmas with their families, because it's a really critical time, and mental health issues, are on the rise, and will be even more so when people can't get together for Christmas.
Chief Poitras wants people to be safe and stay distanced during the holidays.
We have to be vigilant and patient, because, like anything else, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. So, this too shall pass.
The restrictions will be in place at least until January 12, 2021. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
After 3 months of negotiations, Sipekne'katik First Nation has called off talks with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. Chief Mike Sack says during discussions to implement a moderate livelihood fishery plan, treaty rights were not acknowledged. Angel Moore reports.
Sipekne'katik First Nation has called off moderate livelihood fishery negotiations with the feds. Chief Mike Sack says treaty rights are non-negotiable.
They're trying to cap our rights right off the get-go, and they have no right to do so. So it's not a very good move on Canada's, part, and just a dirty move in my mind.
Sack says the Department of Fisheries and Oceans is trying to lump the moderate livelihood fishery with commercial licenses, just as the commercial lobster fishery season opens in St. Mary's Bay.
3 months go by and then they throw that at us, just as they clean the bay out for traps, as the commercial industry is starting. Doesn't sit well with us.
3 months ago, Sipekne'katik First Nation launched their moderate livelihood fishery. The launch was met with violence from non-Indigenous fishers who say the fishery is illegal. But over 2 decades ago, the Supreme Court of Canada upheld the treaty right of the Mi'kmaq to earn a moderate livelihood. SAC says the DFO are risking nation-to-nation relationships by ignoring treaty rights.
100%. DFO was just trying to make sure that no rights were upheld.
SAC says talks must be based on treaty rights in order to continue. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada did not respond to request before deadline. Meanwhile, Sipekne'katik fishers will still keep fishing as the moderate livelihood fishery season ends next week. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Sipekne'katik, Halifax.
He wasn't invited, but the mayor of Oka showed up to a peaceful protest held by Sipekne'katik residents to mark the International Day of Human Rights. The Mohawks say Oka has ignored these rights for hundreds of years. But Pascal Couillon says their cause is fake news. Lindsay Richardson reports.
We've been putting up signs. I don't know what the threat is. It's just signs. You know, we're stating that we're done with this. You know, this is happening right across our territories, right across Canada and Turtle Island. And, you know, enough is enough.
It's International Human Rights Day, so residents of Sipekne'katik came out to the Oka golf course to demonstrate. Its proposed expansion was the catalyst for the 1990 crisis. But developing on disputed land is still a problem in 2020.
Where are the people supposed to go when all this land is gone, when it's all developed?
The group says Oka is abusing their human rights.
For all these Indigenous human rights defenders who have been killed by colonialism and who continue to be criminalized, we do this for them.
In a statement also calling out lack of transparency, free, prior and informed consent, and inaction by governments.
Oka keeps taking land, and the federal government is really doing nothing to protect the human rights of the people here in Sipekne'katik. We're tired of being pushed around. We had a very difficult summer between the Golin development and the archaeological digs. So we're fed up.
Oka is pushing for heritage status of the Pines. There are rumors the golf course too will be put up for sale. The plan is to keep pressure on while gathering peacefully.
We know that there are 2 standards of rights, and you know, as far as we're concerned, the way we are treated, we're like the disposable people of Canada. So we're not tolerating this.
He's here by himself.
Neither, apparently, is the mayor of Oka.
It's a fake news. The municipality of Oka want to save the trees.
But from Sipekne'kati's perspective,
this is our land. This is our building. You're standing on Sipekne'katik territory.
The exchange went on several minutes, but the land disputes persisted over 300 years.
The golf course is not sold. It's a fake news. The municipality of Oka want only the peace. The golf course is not sold. The municipality of Oka want to save the trees.
So you contradict yourself.
Yeah,
we don't believe you. We don't believe you. Whatever you say, we do not believe you.
We caught the mayor on his way out.
C'est pour ça que je suis venu ici, pour rétablir les faits, pour rétablir la paix. Parce que Mme Gabrielle, présentement, là, ce qu'elle fait, là, c'est qu'elle veut mettre la chicane entre nos 2 communautés inutilement parce que c'est faux ce qu'elle dit.
Residents had their own questions.
I don't understand how there's so much animosity and anger and hate between our people.
On est pris, nous, entre les revendications, puis entre le gouvernement fédéral. Donc, les citoyens d'Oka, on est pris entre les deux. Tu sais, moi, j'étais pas là il y a 300 ans.
Canada may not be getting involved, but Quebec did by end of day. Indigenous Affairs Minister Yann Lafrenière says he's appointing a negotiator to identify cohabitation issues. They'll report back to Quebec by end of March 2021. Despite the disruption Thursday, the group continued a peaceful march. Though 30 years have passed since the so-called 1990 crisis, they say real discussions have not yet begun. Lindsay Richardson for APTN National News on Sipekne'katik, Mohawk Territory.
Time now to step aside for a quick break. But still to come, the Yukon becomes the first jurisdiction to act on the MMIWG inquiry recommendations.
Today marks a historic day. The completion of the Yukon Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and 2S+ strategy.
Welcome back. 3.5 years ago, the first MMIWG hearings took place in the Yukon. Today, the territory announced its strategy to end the violence against Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit Plus people, making it the first jurisdiction in Canada to do so. Here's APTN's Sarah Connors with that strategy.
It's a day many have been waiting for.
Today marks a historic day. The completion of the Yukon Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and 2S+ strategy.
Today's event marks the first jurisdiction in Canada to reveal its strategy on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
With this, we will work together to create a better Yukon where Indigenous women are safe and respected.
The MMIWG inquiry started in Whitehorse in 2017. Over 2 years, 24 hearings and events were held to gather statements from across Canada. The inquiry's final report was released last year, demanding 231 calls for justice. Now, the territory has promised to answer many of those calls, earning praise from one of Canada's top members of Parliament.
Yukon's plan contains a vision statement. It needs to be echoed everywhere in Canada.
Changing the story to uphold dignity and justice has 31 priority actions to end violence against Indigenous women and girls. It's composed of 4 goals, and each part includes a handful of directives, like improving mental wellness support for victims and perpetuators of violence, greater investment in education and training of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit Plus people, and reviewing the Yukon's Police Force 2010 review of the RCMP. The minister in charge of the strategy says it's a benchmark for other jurisdictions to follow suit.
We have created a whole of Yukon response that will guide us for the next 10 to 15 years.
Dozens of dignitaries signed their commitment to uphold the justice and dignity of Indigenous women and girls.
Furthermore, I commit to my sisters and my daughters and my granddaughter.
Funding for the strategy will be determined as part of the implementation plan, which hasn't been determined yet. And many partners will work together in implementing the strategies, like government, First Nations, and women's groups. A historic first and what will be one of many answers to calls for justice.
No one can do this alone, but together we can.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Today, the Ontario government announced money for the Ontario Native Women's Association to battle the exploitation of Indigenous women and girls in Canada's sex trade. The province has allotted almost $11 million over the next 5 years. The money will be used to help Indigenous youth and women escape human trafficking. The outreach program is called Courage for Change. The new funds will expand the program across the province and pay for 26 full-time frontline workers. The Ontario Native Women's Association says Ontario is a hub for the sex trade, and Indigenous girls are often the targets for exploitation and sexual violence.
This program specifically is a frontline essential service, and in the past, since 2017, we've supported 89 Indigenous women and children safely exit from human trafficking here in Thunder Bay and Toronto. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And so now with this expansion, because we're seeing a lot more youth being exploited.
Canada's underfunding of First Nation child welfare is well known, but it's not only the federal government that's failing Indigenous children. Tomorrow night on APTN Investigates, journalists Cullen Crozier and Kenneth Jackson look into First Nations child welfare agencies that are putting children's lives at risk. Here's a preview of The Death Report, Part 2.
This coming January will mark a year since Bill C-92 came into effect to affirm the rights of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis Nation communities to exercise jurisdiction over their children and families. This co-developed legislation is about putting kids first, having fewer children in care, and reuniting more families. To do that, Indigenous communities must be in the driver's seat.
It's no secret that Canada's child welfare system is in a state of crisis, or that it's Indigenous children who are paying the highest price. To this day, no one knows the total number of Indigenous kids in care, or how many have died there.
The Dans were threatening the local Children's Aid Society that if social workers came on the reserve, then they were going to shoot them.
Canada's underfunding of First Nations child welfare is well known. But it's not only the federal government that's failing Indigenous children.
And it's frustrating because when you take a kid from a parent, you're taking them because you're supposed to be protecting them, and we're not protecting them.
First Nations child welfare agencies are assuming more and more responsibility over child welfare each year.
I see so much injustice.
The Death Report Part 2 airs tomorrow night following the APTN National News. You can catch Part 1 by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. We've got to step aside for another break, but coming up, we take a look at the success of a program helping out Indigenous businesswomen.
It's been challenging for Indigenous women entrepreneurs and for all entrepreneurs, in fact, but it's also shown a lot of resilience. Some of the women were sharing that with COVID, with a bit of a slowdown time, it's also given them time to be able to work on their business.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This photo comes from Ernest Turner, his second photo of the day this week, from the Grand Rapids village located in the center of Manitoba. Those are some great photos, Ernest. You can send us your photos in an email. You can send them to share@aptn.ca, and we'll do our best to get them on the air. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 0 with a rain-snow mix for St. John's, +3 and snow in Charlottetown, -3 and snow for Nain and Happy Valley, Goose Bay, -1 with snow for Chibougamau, +5 in Montreal, 8 above in Toronto, +4 with flurries for Sault Ste. Marie, 2 below in Thunder Bay, -6 for Sioux Lookout, -12 in God's Lake and Norway House, -4 for Winnipeg, Gimli and Dauphin. In Saskatchewan, 8 below in Regina, -6 for Saskatoon, -12 in Uranium City, 5 below in Meadow Lake. Over in northern Alberta, -6 in Fort McMurray, Peace River and Grand Prairie, 0 for Medicine Hat, -7 in Lethbridge and Calgary, +6 with showers in Vancouver and Campbell River, -10 with snow for Fort Nelson, 1 below in Smithers, -31 in Old Crow, 8 below for Whitehorse, -17 with snow for Yellowknife, 13 below in Fort Liard, -23 in Sax Harbor, 29 below and snow in Fort McPherson, -30 in Chesterfield, 33 below for Whale Cove, -21 with snow in Resolute, 29 below with snow in Joe Haven. A new program designed to help Indigenous women in business got off to a slow start earlier this year due to COVID, but it's now bursting at the seams due to its success. Here's Annette Francis with that story in Prince Edward County near Picton, Ontario.
So come on into the
Shira Barberstock is getting just a small taste of exactly what Mickey Colton's Horse Sense business does.
If you walk down the middle, the horses can't reach you. If you want them to touch you, you can. You're going to stop before each stall and just get an impression of them.
Horse Sense isn't so much about learning about how to ride a horse. It's more about self-awareness.
Horse Sense is an equine wellness business. It's under the Feel principles, which is facilitated equine experiential learning. So that is the certification and the training that I have. So I use my horses to help people interact and to get authentic and become authentic and find their emotions.
Colton began Horse Sense after her retirement from a 30-year career as a pilot in the Air Force. She soon found out that she needed some expertise in how to create a business plan and how to look after the finances. And then last spring, she joined a new training initiative called QuayBiz.
And so getting this has just given me incredible exposure and training on how to do those kind of things. It's been great.
Barbara Stock is the brains behind QuayBiz. The Eastern Ontario initiative helps Indigenous women in business like Colton.
It was actually Queen's University that started the program, so the We Can program. They received funding through the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy, and we had an opportunity as a company, so our company is Aguajo Equal Source, to bid for the program, and we were successful, so we're leading it.
Over the past 3 months, Barbara Stock led Colton and 9 other Indigenous entrepreneurs in achieving their business goals through online business training and mentorship programs. She says in spite of having to switch to online training due to COVID-19, the program has been successful.
It's been challenging for Indigenous women entrepreneurs and for all entrepreneurs, in fact. But it's also shown a lot of resilience. Some of the women were sharing that with COVID, with a bit of a slowdown time, it's also given them time to be able to work on their business. So they're spending more time strategizing and working on it.
But for Colton, it's had the opposite effect.
COVID has actually driven people out into nature. It has, because people are so kind of trapped because of the disease, that I think it's driven them into nature. Because of my business is really done mostly in the outside, it's done in nature. It has been an advantage in a weird way for me.
Today the tables have turned. Colton is teaching Barbara Stock a few things face to face.
Riley, could you maybe come over here? Thanks.
Barbara Stock says it's been great.
They cannot walk away. They haven't got the option, but here he has the option he chooses to be with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Riley. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me breathe in your ear.
That actually warmed me up a little bit. Thank you. Thank you for this experience.
According to Barbara Stock, BizQuay will be accepting a new round of applications from aspiring Indigenous entrepreneurs next April. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Prince Edward County.
It's really nice to be able to share this with people.
Riley's a good listener. Nation to Nation will be continuing APTN News' focus on child welfare tonight. Here's host Todd Lamourand with a preview.
On tonight's show, we'll be focusing on the death report of Sasha Raven Bobb. She was only 12 when she took her own life, while in the care of a First Nations-led child welfare agency. Her death report shows an utter failure to protect her. Dr. Kim Snow is a child welfare expert from Ryerson University, and she'll tell us what her thoughts are after reading this report. As well, Nation to Nation producer Kenneth Jackson will tell us how Sasha's death is a symptom of the entire child welfare system. That's coming up in a matter of moments, so please stick around.
And Todd is just a few minutes away because that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.